Hi guys, so today I'm going to show one of my classical games that I played recently on Monday night. This was part of the Edinburgh League. I was board number 3 for our team, and we were playing a slightly weaker team, so I was playing someone about 200 points below me, a little less than that, but they were about 1900. And yeah, let's get into the game. The time control here is quite sort of brutal. The team we were playing, they had to get out of their venue by like 10 o'clock, so they choose this short time control, which is just 70 minutes for 34 moves, and then an extra 15 minutes after that. So you've only got an average of about 2 minutes for your first 34 moves, which is, yeah, it's quite it is quite short, but it really is a sort of test of skill, or can you not get bogged down into I think unnecessary calculations, which is something I've suffered from in the past. So you've got to, I find, just treat these shorter time controls as an opportunity to kind of refine your thinking. So anyway, enough of the intro. Let's get into the game. I opened with 1e4, as I've done most of my life. There have been phases of other moves as well, but generally it's been 1e4, and he played c5. So the Sicilian. Now we've got a decision to make. In general, I've played knight f3 here, but today I was feeling a little aggressive, and I decided to go for the Smith-Morra, which starts with the second move d4 here, and yeah, a lot of what I know about the Smith-Morra is based on this wonderful book by Mark Esserman, who is not sponsoring the video, but it is a great book, and if you're interested in learning more about the opening, I would check that out, or check his or have a look at his channel as well. Lots of very interesting stuff on there, and Black doesn't have to accept this, but they definitely should take on d4 first, as my opponent did, and c3. So this is the idea. We're sort of trying to accelerate White's development, and if Black takes, as he did in this game, we will get the knight out, and in general, White has pretty easy decisions where these pieces go. We're going to have this kind of setup going on. The bishop, sometimes e3, sometimes f4, sometimes g5. Sometimes we wait a little, put the queen on e2 first. It does depend a bit on what Black does, but in general, that's what we're aiming for: rapid development here, and trying to score an immediate knockout. As I said, Black doesn't have to accept. One way you can decline is to play d3. This is quite sort of a common response to situations like this, where like you can take and let the knight out to sort of push past it, because that pawn can then blocks the knight. Actually, this should be a bit better for White, but yeah, we'll maybe discuss that another day. The best way to decline is with knight f6, when we'll actually transpose into an alpin usually, but again, we'll discuss that another day, hopefully. My opponent decided to take this time, and I obviously took back with the knight, and he played knight c6, which is of course fine. It doesn't really give me a lot of information as to what sort of setup he's going for, but that's fine. My moves are quite obvious at this stage, so I played knight f3 and d6. So this is a very common idea in the Sicilian to prevent the move e5, Although after the move bishop c4, the general idea here would be to play knight f6. But here it simply doesn't work because of e5 anyway, and white gets a huge initiative here. After, for example, d takes e5, white can exchange queens, and whichever way black takes back will invade with a knight and target these sensitive squares. Like king takes knight g5, and yeah, black is in very big trouble here. Knight takes is no better really. Knight b5, and yeah, white black can even get checkmated very quickly here, like so. So that's why black plays the move a6 here, to enable the development of the knight to f6 without allowing this trick with knight b5 to happen later. So I castled. Obviously, we're looking for correct development here, and as you can see, all of black's pieces are all black's king side is still undeveloped, whereas I've developed 3 pieces and I've already castled. So certainly there's some compensation. Is there enough compensation? Well, let's find out. So knight f6 as advertised, and this is actually a very interesting moment. According to Mark, there are 3 options here. One of them is b4, which is the most complicated, but probably not quite enough. Doesn't give white enough play. I think it's not that black takes here because bishop f7 and queen b3, but yeah, bishop g4, and yeah, it's obviously very complicated, but black should be okay here. So the second move is bishop e3, and this is planning to regain the pawn with queen b3 later. So e6 is generally what black does here, and again it's a very slightly different game. I think here bishop g4 is not so good, because after queen b3 we're simply winning this pawn back. Yeah, and knight d4 as well. So yeah, getting out of this bishop f3 thing, and there's a lot of pressure here. Okay, so I played what is theoretically the best move, apparently, which is bishop f4, and this cuts across black's ideas quite nicely. So in the event of e6, the bishop will be well positioned to put pressure on the d6 pawn and perhaps win it later. And it also stops knight e5 from being a thing. Why does that matter? Well, black played bishop g4 here. And in general, one of the ways that you can fight against gambit openings where one side has given up material is to simply exchange off pieces, because the less firepower that the attacker has, the less likely they are to create some kind of tactical possibility, and the more likely you are to win the game. And that's what bishop g4 is usually intended at, playing bishop takes f3 and then knight e5. But after bishop f4, knight e5 is not really possible, because we can simply take it and with the bishop, and well, that doubles black's pawns, so immediately the extra pawn is worth less, and also we'll later be able to target the black queen on the newly opened d file. So I initially thought that the idea here was to play queen b3, targeting both of these pawns, but unfortunately this doesn't quite work because there's a very sneaky idea for black. So black can play the move e6, and after taking b7, knight a5. So this attacks two pieces. There's only one way to defend both of them. Queen b4. And here, well, it sort of looks like white is getting away, even though there's this pressure here. If d5 immediately, can play queen a4 check. If black takes, then, well, we're pretty happy here. We've regained the pawn. Black still hasn't completed development. Rook c8 isn't really possible because we can take on a6. This would be pretty good for white. However, black has this wonderful move e5, gaining time on the bishop, and this opens up the bishop's retreat to d7, and so it means that d5 will come next. So let's say e3, bishop e3. Now d5, and white loses a piece because queen a4, bishop d7. But that just goes to show how sharp you have to be to play these openings well, and you know the sort of things you have to know. This I wasn't aware of actually at the time. I just thought this was bad, and I didn't see this e5 thing, which I now know. But yeah, I rejected it, but for the wrong reason, which is quite funny. So h3 is the idea, and this fortunately was correct. Because yeah, after takes, as we've said, knight e5, not so great for black now. We can just take and start harassing the black queen, which is a big theme of this opening. And here my opponent made a mistake. He should have continued with move e6, and played bishop e7 and castled. And then he's okay. I've got some compensation. Let's say rook d1. And okay, the game continues. I'm threatening e5. But in general, black should be able to survive at least for a few more moves. Whereas after the move g6, he's in trouble. This looks very natural, maybe, to put the bishop on g7, but it's simply not fast enough, and he doesn't really ever have he doesn't really ever get the time to do this, which is why it's a mistake. Now I have an important move here. It doesn't really matter which rook I put on d1 as long as I put one there. So I decided to put the f rook on d1. I reasoned that perhaps there'd be some scenarios where I want to have this rook on c1. Let's say the queen goes to c8 or some square in the future. And I'd be less likely to want to put this rook on e1 because I couldn't see the e file opening up all that soon. Also, I thought that maybe I'd like to have this square available for the bishop one day, but again, that was quite unlikely. Both moves are fine. And sadly for my opponent here, he made another mistake, but I think quite an understandable one. when your queen is under this sort of X-ray pressure, it's very natural to just move it away. Also, I'm threatening to play the move e5, exploiting this pin. And so he played queen a5. But now we see another reason why g6 was a mistake. As well as being slow, it also weakened the key element of black's position. I'll give you a moment to find the move here, if you'd like. Well done if you saw bishop takes d6. That exploits the fact that this pawn is now overloaded. It's doing two jobs. It was defending the g6 pawn, also the f6 knight. And it can't do both of them. So now if it takes, then just take back. Yeah. If he could have had the bishop on g7 already, then this would be fine. He could just castle here. But now he's threatened with both queen h8 and a capture on f7. So this is clearly unplayable for black. And so he thought for a little while here. We both spent about 20 minutes at this stage, so we've got about 50 minutes for next 22 moves. So a roughly similar situation to how we started the game. He played the move knight e5. And here I made a slight mistake. But the move I had to see was quite sort of stunning, really. So I took, because I couldn't see any other way of getting out of this situation. I briefly considered the move bishop b5 check, because I thought, okay, if he takes with the pawn, I'll take back with the bishop on e5, and well, this pawn sort of cuts off his queen from coming back to the defense, and I'll maybe take on f6 and play knight d5, and I'll have a dominating position. However, the reason I rejected this was because instead he could take with the queen. And now if I take here, he takes my queen with check, and he's got enough time to take here. I never get to land the c7 fork, which would be deadly. Now I should have gone a move deeper here. If I'd seen that I could play queen f4 here, that would have been a lot better. Because the queen is still attacked and has to move. I think, I haven't checked this line, but I think if knight d3 we can now take, and because this isn't check, we do get to play knight c7, and now we take on f4 with check, and yeah, black is completely toasted here. So if some other move, like if he moves the queen away, like queen takes b2, well then there's actually more craziness. So it looks more natural to me to take with the bishop here to threaten things like knight d5, but the computer actually wanted to take with the queen, not allowing bishop g7 because of checkmate. And after rook c8, rook's attacking the knight, rook c1 defending, knight d7, sacrificing the rook on h8 to take the bishop on d6. And now this beautiful move knight d5, exploiting the fact that queen h8 is met by rook takes d8 mate. So anyway, I didn't see this line, unsurprisingly. I think it's possible if I was having a really good day that I could have spotted queen f4 here, but not this time, sadly. So I took. Unfortunately, it's still okay. It's still good for white. So he took back. And now, yeah, I thought for about 10 minutes here, which was quite a lot of time. I was considering things like rook d5 to try and get access towards the f7 square. Like, let's say he takes it, and take. Now I'm threatening f7, and I'm also threatening b7, which would attack the rook. But unfortunately, he can simply play e6 here, and my attack isn't quite powerful enough because of rook d8, important move controlling the d file, bishop c6 was the idea, and then king e7. It looks a bit scary for black, but I can't really bring any more pieces in. This knight is very restricted here. My queen isn't really that well placed on f3. His queen's very well centralized, and he can simply bring the rest of his pieces into the game. This, in fact, is losing for white. Another line I was looking at was bishop f7, because after king takes, now I can play rook d5. Knight being pinned to the king. Queen e6, e5, winning back the piece. But it was just difficult to properly assess this. I wasn't sure if I was getting enough here, and I also didn't think maybe this was the absolute best I could do from this position. And so I ended up playing the move knight d5, which I had a sort of concrete idea behind, which was to play knight b6 and knight d7. And you'll see this actually works quite well in the game. Yeah, so he played the move bishop g7 because he has to try and get out at some point. I don't know if there's sort of anything else he could have done really here. He can't play e6 because of takes. If knight takes d5, then I take back with the bishop, and I have the same idea. It's just I haven't given up an exchange here and still controlling the d file. So this would be very good for me. e6, bishop e7. It doesn't really have rook d8 because I can do something like check and take on f7. And yeah, completely winning here with rook d1, etc., and all of these various mating ideas. So yeah, it was hard for him to find a move here. If he moves the queen away, I think e5 should be quite strong. There's not really an obvious place to move the queen. He has to keep an eye on the c7 square, which is quite nice. Something like queen b8, e5. E5 should be quite good. If queen takes, then rook e1, and so on, with the pressure on f6. So yeah, it should be quite good. So bishop g7. Okay, now he's preparing to castle, and if he could castle here, then, well, the position wouldn't be so bad, right? There's now a beautiful bishop on g7, putting pressure down the diagonal, and all of his pieces are doing quite well. I can take an f6, but then it's opposite bishops. It's not so obvious how that I've got any advantage at all. can't really make use of the extra development then. So I played, but fortunately I had a line against this. I played them knight b6, attacking the rook. If the rook had gone to d8, I would have happily taken and deprived him of the ability to castle, and probably taken the f7 pawn as well, and later resumed my attack. Other than that, there's not really anything else for him to do. He could castle, and in fact the computer recommends this, just simply giving up the exchange and playing this position, but obviously this is without much hope for black. There's no real compensation here. All of my pieces are well placed. Yeah, eventually I should win the game. So he played, well, it's the most obvious move, I think, rook b8, but this loses to knight d7, which I had managed to see when I played knight d5, and I thought this is actually quite nice because it's not often that you get to sort of exploit a fork like this on d7. It's maybe not such like an obvious pattern, which is I think why I was quite happy to see it. And yeah, again, he should give up the exchange here, but now he can't even castle because the knight is covering the f8 square. So yeah, it's hard to say what he should even do now. He did decide to take, but after queen takes f7, his only move is king d8, and I played the move bishop e6, which forces the winning back of the piece, and I'll be up a pawn. The computer actually isn't so the evaluation isn't so much in my favor as maybe expected. It's +3, but I was thinking maybe it would be more like closer to +10. But it actually finds some devilish resources to get out of this without being checkmated. So we can just have a quick play through these here. He resigned at this point, but yeah, he maybe could have played on for a bit and asked me to show some kind of technique. King c7, rook d7 check, and okay, that's queen takes c7. It looks completely over, the pressure here and so on, but apparently it's not so bad because of things like bishop d6, and yeah, now there's queen h2 coming, and well, it's hard for me to attack the king on the dark square, so he could have maybe survived for a bit here, but yeah, he'd seen enough and decided to resign after bishop e6. So yeah, a pretty decent outing for the Morra, I would say. It's the second time I've played it. I've managed to get 2 pretty quick wins so far. I don't think my knowledge is so great of the opening to consider playing it against really strong players, but I think it's a great weapon to have for any player, no matter what level you are. and it just goes to show, this is still a very decent player, just under 1900, and yeah, was lost. That had a lost position in just 11 moves, without really making a lot of obvious mistakes, just sort of not appreciating the time element in chess, and neglecting the rapid development of its pieces. So yeah, hopefully there was some sort of instructional points in that at least, and yeah, please join me next time. Thank you very much. Goodbye for now.